This horror story from a former trans kid genuinely broke my heart. We're going to react to this and all your other voicemails, woke horror stories, and personal life scenarios in this Voicemail Friday episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and social media, all from an independent political perspective. Guys, welcome back to the show, and thank you to everyone who sent in a voicemail for our Voicemail Friday episodes. The link to do so is in the description. And up first, we're going to hear from somebody who wanted top surgery, thinking they were trans as young as 11 years old. Let's listen to this really moving testimony.
Hi, Brad. My name is Chloe. During COVID, I got sucked into the woke mind virus. I was 10 saying that I was a lesbian, mainly because my older sister was a lesbian, and she would vent to me about how my parents didn't support her. And then I started saying that I was a transgender man, and that I really wanted top surgery because having breasts made me feel so disgusted with myself. And at 11, I got Twitter, which was probably the worst thing I could have ever done. And I had a community of other teens and adults telling me that it was okay to hate my parents, and mutilating my body was okay too, because I know what's best for myself. And through this, I had convinced myself that I had several mental illnesses like BPD, ADHD, OCD, body dysmorphia, anxiety, and even an eating disorder. I went to a Christian school, and I had told my friends that I was now a transgender man and my name was Ryan, and that if they didn't accept it, that they were homophobic and transphobic and a bunch of other phobics. At one point, my very woke aunt, who is now telling her 6-year-old son that he is a girl, had started a GoFundMe for me to get top surgery when I turned 18, and it started me on testosterone gel because my parents didn't want to mutilate me. Anyways, Brad, I'm normal now, and I love being a woman. My question for you is, how do we get people in my generation to realize that this is not normal? It's a mental disorder. Or how do we get them to think for themselves and not go along with this movement because they do not understand the repercussions of it because they are children?
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm really happy that it has a happy ending and that you were sucked into this, but ultimately were not put down the path that you'll see some people where they're stuck with lifelong changes or they never really realize their way out of it. It sounds like your story, as wild and crazy as it seems, has a mostly happy ending. I do have to spare a word for your crazy aunt, though. The idea that you would be giving a child testosterone gel without the knowledge of their parents is at least what I'm assuming from your story. You didn't say that explicitly, but if your parents didn't want you to do it and then the aunt is doing it, that seems so unethical and like such a violation of respect and boundaries for your parents, and probably criminal. It's got to violate some kind of law to be doing that. So that is extremely concerning behavior from your aunt. And then look, this comes back to a recurring trend where I think that we will view the skyrocketing trend of child transitioning. It will be looked back at like a lobotomy style phase in medicine where ideology overpowered evidence. A bunch of people were harmed, and then slowly but surely the community and the consensus came around. And I'm just, my heart breaks for the people that got caught up in it. I think it is a tragedy. I think it's a failing of many of our institutions that we're not honest about the data and what the studies actually say about this stuff. And then stories like yours always come to mind when you hear people insist there's no such thing as social contagion, which is not just saying that being trans is a disease or anything like that. It's saying that teenagers are impressionable and they're social creatures and influenced heavily by their peers and by peer networks, both in person and social media. And that is true with literally every condition and trend that we're aware of, yet somehow, oh no, it's not true for gender. It's totally 100% organic and innate, and nothing at all could socially influence it, gender identity or feelings of a different identity or that kind of thing. That was always absurd. That was always laughable. And I think it will still take years for us to get good data on detransition rates and desistance rates through this crazy time we live through. But yeah, I think the number one thing we can do is because your question at the end there is an important one. Like, what can we do to protect young people and just not let them make life altering changes? Give them the time to grow. So if you have a trans identifying young person in your life or whatever, maybe you need to let them change their hair or change their clothes and change their name, but prevent them from making irreversible changes because the brain's still developing, going through puberty and coming to grips with sexual orientation or other things. All of that could result in it resolving. And that's why you can't be making irreversible changes. So I think it will partially help the problem. I'm not saying it will solve it completely if we just gatekeep the irreversible medical stuff until people are of age and give them the time to become firm in their identity. Because I've always said this, I think there's a small percentage of people for whom transitioning eventually may be the right path if they have really persistent long run gender dysphoria. And that's no skin off my back for them to do so, but it is just obvious and undeniable at this point, at least in my view, that a lot of young people were caught up in this. And many, unfortunately, did not come out with a happy ending quite as much as you did. So I'm really grateful for that and grateful to you for sharing your story. Guys, let me know what you think about this young woman's story in the comments below. Do make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button while you're at it. And you can send in your voicemail at the SpeakPipe link in the description. Now, guys, we're going to hear from another person about their drama in their lesbian relationship. And I got some serious thoughts on this one. We're going to get into all of it after this. When it comes to the debate over LGBT issues, Americans increasingly live in different realities, and our media outlets do too. Just consider the story we talked about recently with the Trump administration seeking to uphold and bring to the Supreme Court its policy requiring sex at birth, biological sex, to be listed on passports, getting rid of the Biden administration's policies to let you put a non-binary gender marker on your passport, an X, and all that. Well, if you only read partisan media, left or right, you'd struggle to understand the full picture of what's truly happening with this story. Using Ground News, an amazing service I've used for years and used to help prepare this show, you can figure out what's really going on. It shows you what both sides are saying so you can make up your own mind, and it includes important information about a source's bias, factuality, ownership, and more. Back to this story about the Supreme Court and the passport changes. On the left, the Advocate's headline reads, "Trump admin asks Supreme Court to restore anti-trans passport policy." Meanwhile, on the right, the National Pulse covered the story as Trump seeks Supreme Court intervention on woke passport gender ruling. That's quite the difference. I knew the media was bad, but using Ground News to help bring you this show has really helped me see just how bad things have gotten. You can get the same plan that I use, which is the Vantage subscription at the link in the description and on screen, ground.news/Brad. Also, the QR code is there on screen, and you can get up to 40% off the Vantage plan. This exclusive discount is available now through my link, so go ahead and break your bubble and sharpen your critical thinking skills by signing up right now. You'll be glad you did. Okay, guys, now it's time for me to put my relationship guru hat on, because me and my grand total of one real relationship and two mini not very serious or healthy relationships gives me the expertise. Now, at least I could say that my one long-term relationship is healthy and successful and here to stay. So maybe that gives me some ability, but malpractice warning when it comes to relationship advice. But I do think I have some thoughts to offer this young woman about the situation she finds herself in with her girlfriend. Let's listen to her story, and then you guys can all chime in on the comments.
Hi Brad. My name is Allie, and I have a girlfriend who I love very much, and we like each other a lot, but we've been having this one issue. So my girlfriend and I are both 21. I moved to a completely different state by myself to attend college when I was 18, and I've been really independent and haven't relied on my family for anything financially since I was in high school. I currently have my own apartment. I pay my own bills. I organize my own transportation. And my girlfriend, however, she lives with her parents for free. She has a curfew, doesn't have a driver's license, and she won't even use public transportation. I personally find that a little frustrating because she still has a curfew, which limits the time we can spend together. because we can't do anything after 8 p.m. because her parents won't let her stay out that late, and we can only go places where her mom can give her a ride. And this sort of makes me feel like I'm dating a teenager. I'm really trying hard to be patient with her, but it's kind of hard for me to understand being super dependent on your parents, especially since I'm a little estranged from mine. But our relationship is perfect aside from this one issue when I really love her. I don't want this to get in the way. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts on the situation, and thank you for telling us about it. I would say that I am somebody who I'm very skeptical of the idea of one thing is not right in the relationships. You should give up and dump him. You know, you get a lot of advice where it's in a relationship on social media, YouTube, podcasts, where their answer is always dump him. And while I sometimes understand that sentiment, I do think people and relationships that are really meaningful are hard to come by and should be treasured. So I'm always very pretty skeptical to say like, oh, this is a deal breaker, or what I would say about this is that there are some serious red flags here. It's very odd for a 21-year-old to not have a driver's license or to have an 8 p.m. curfew or these other things. And it does reflect a lack of maturity or development. I guess the flip side, though, is that you're only 21. In a sense, 21 is very old to be in that situation, but it's also still pretty young. So you could give it some time. What I would recommend is that with your girlfriend, does she have a plan? Like, is there a one year plan to having her own place and to getting her driver's license? Because maybe these things are things you can accept over a certain period of time with a destination in mind. But if your girlfriend is just kind of slow rolling her way through life in this extended adolescence, and there's no real sign of that changing or of her being particularly motivated or interested in changing it, then I think you have to at some point move on, unless you want to be stuck in that, because some people get stuck in life and just stay. So that's what I would say. If you have a good relationship otherwise, if this is somebody you care about, don't give up on her right away just because of this one aspect of your relationship or dynamic or her life that isn't where you want it to be. But also don't sink 5 years of your life waiting for her nebulous someday to change it. There needs to be some actual action and initiative and plan demonstrated. And if there's not, then at some point you'll have to reevaluate that and see if you're really meant to be together right now. That's my take, at least, but you guys let me know what you think in the comments. And up next, we're going to hear about more gender drama tearing friends apart. Let's listen.
Hey, Brad. My name is Becky. I listen to your podcast all the time. I really like you. And you're very cool. My woke horror story is that a former friend has decided to unfriend me and my family because we're Christians and we won't use the feminine pronouns for said former friend's partner. And we can't be friends anymore. And she's just like, no, you've got to use the pronouns, whether you like it or not. And this friend, this has been like almost 15 years worth of friendship, and it's all coming crashing down because our Christian beliefs, demand that we don't use those pronouns. And here's the thing, we use the chosen name, and we don't use any pronouns. We don't use the male pronouns, but we don't use the female pronouns. Like we got in that habit where we just weren't using pronouns at all, but we were using the name. Thanks, Brad. It's awesome hearing you.
Well, thank you for sending in your message. And I'm really sorry to hear about this. I hear from so many people who've had these long-running relationships frayed over different political or cultural or social tensions. And it always makes me sad because even if ultimately there's no option but to end the relationship, there's still often something beautiful and positive about that person and about the relationship you had over the years that you're losing. And I think everybody should wish that we could minimize that kind of disruption and division. But it sounds like you've done what you can, because my advice when I was listening to your voicemail until the end was going to be something along the lines of what you're already doing, because I don't expect you to compromise your deeply held religious values, but at the same time, you have to put yourself in another person's shoes and realize that for a trans person to be like aggressively called he or him or man or by an old name would be an uncomfortable dynamic for them. And I don't think it's unreasonable that they wouldn't want to participate in that. But what you're saying, trying to avoid pronouns, I mean, especially because when you're with this person and your friend, you're going to speak to them in second person, like, oh, how is work going? Like, or, oh, when are you guys going on a trip? You don't necessarily have to use a ton of pronouns. So it sounds like you've tried to suggest a reasonable alternative middle ground compromise, but your friend's position is no, you will bend the knee to my values and my beliefs, or I'm cutting you out of my life. I would consider that to be a form of emotional blackmail. And I think you do have to firmly draw a boundary and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And you can decide if you feel that you have to end our relationship because I won't allow you to dictate my values and my speech, then I'm sorry that we've come to that place. But I respect your decision, and please let me know if something changes in the future in your thinking, because I do value you and the relationship we've had over the years, and I would love to revisit it if you can find yourself in a more open-minded place. I really don't think there's another option. I don't believe in lying or like contradicting your values or pretending you don't believe what you believe just to be nice. And I think on things that are fundamental to you, like your faith, like that, I think at some point you have to accommodate people and be polite as much as you can, but you can't compromise the firmly held beliefs you have. That's part of life and standing by your beliefs and principles, even if it ruffles feathers sometimes. So it sounds like you've been thoughtful about this, and I appreciate that, but I'm not sure there's much more you could do. Let's listen to a final story, and this one is a crazy one, about somebody who is apparently too unsafe to volunteer to help the vulnerable because she listens to horrible bigots and meanies like that one guy, Brad Polumbo, on YouTube. Let's listen.
Hi, Brad. I'm Sabrina. I really wanted to share this with you. I had a friend group that was all pretty much radically left. It started to dissolve when I got asked what LGBTQ YouTubers that I watch, and I said you and Amir. I then got called transphobic because you are apparently transphobic. Fast forward, and one of the friend group, the only one that shared more central views, shared to an organization after getting mad at me that I volunteer with. 5 private messages during election time where I stated that I believe trans people are their biological sex, but I don't broadcast that personal belief and still respect them to call them by their pronouns and names of their choosing. I was then called transphobic by this organization and unsafe to volunteer around vulnerable people. To mind you, I work with vulnerable people daily for work. Am I the crazy one?
Let me think about it. I don't know. Real tough one. No, you're not the crazy one. And I think you already know that, but this story is ridiculous and it is sad, because you would think that the people running nonprofits targeted or charities targeted towards helping vulnerable people, that their first priority would be helping needy people, not enforcing ideological litmus tests on their volunteers. That's very strange and bizarre behavior. And I would just encourage you to distance yourself from all of these people and find somewhere where they're not going to give you a pronoun purity test to see if you can ladle soup out to the homeless, because there's so many places and so many people that need help. And it is wonderful that you take the time and dedicate time in your life to help people, and you should not let them stop you from doing that. It also sounds like petty and vindictive that your friend did this when they were mad at you. It wasn't even some earnest belief. But I just like, I can't even take seriously the people who unironically believe that, like, oh, so-and-so makes someone unsafe with their beliefs. It's giving me flashbacks to when I was like excommunicated from a gay men's soccer league because my beliefs about trans people and kids shouldn't be medically transitioned made trans people unsafe if they played soccer with us. And I'm like, what a bizarre view. It's not like I bring up those beliefs. First off, they don't make anyone unsafe because words are not violence, but it's also not even like I bring them up. And I imagine that you are not bringing up your beliefs about gender while volunteering with the needy. And it sounds like you, one, don't have hateful beliefs. And I'm so frustrated by people pulling this thing where they call everyone who's not actually hateful or transphobic these things, and they water these terms down to meaninglessness, because there are people who actually have hate in their hearts for trans people, who are disgusted by them and filled with bile towards them. And I see it all the time on social media and in right-wing political commentary. And that is not me. That is not us. We just have common sense and we're in touch with reality. And it's sad to me and deeply counterproductive as well that they would smear you like this and put their bizarre political ideology and purity tests over helping the vulnerable. But I encourage you, I implore you to not be deterred and find another way to give back in your community. And I guess maybe when you're talking to lefties, don't let on that you watch the YouTube channel of such a horrible, mean bigot like Brad Polumbo. What do you guys all think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, because that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Send in your voicemails at the link in the description, the SpeakPipe link. Rate and review the show wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Have a great weekend, guys, and we'll talk again real soon.